Welcome to episode 21 of Timely Topics. Today I'm sitting down with Jennie Ripps, the founder and CEO of Owl's Brew, a Connecticut-based beverage company known for its innovative line of tea-based alcoholic drinks. Jennie's journey into the beverage industry was inspired by her exploration of tea's health benefits, particularly during a time when she was seeking immune-boosting options for her father. Her passion for natural ingredients led her to create Brew Lab Tea, offering an artisanal tea blends to New York City restaurants. This venture evolved into Owl's Brew in 2013, which she co-founded with Maria Littlefield, aiming to provide clean, transparent, and flavorful alcoholic beverages. Under Jennie's leadership, Owl's Brew has expanded its presence to over 4,000 national stores, emphasizing products made with organic teas and botanicals. Jennie is also a certified tea sommelier and a co-author of Wise Cocktails, a DIY guide to crafting tea-based cocktails. Let's dive in. All right, Jennie, thank you so much for joining us here on Timely Topics. It's so great to have you in the studio with us today.
Great. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know we've had an opportunity to chat a few different times. You've come into some classes. You've talked a little bit about your experience. So I'm actually really, really excited. I've been waiting for you to come on the podcast for a while because I think there's so many good nuggets about your journey as an entrepreneur and going into the beverage industry and just a lot of things that I would like to spend some time going through.
I loved being in your class.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So starting at the very, very beginning, what inspired you to start Owl's Brew?
So I started out as a tea sommelier. So the sort of beginning of my journey with beverage was like a long time ago. I had graduated from school. I'd been an English major and I'd gone into publishing, and I sort of found my way into this career. So a family member got sick. My father was sick with cancer, and I started researching benefits for him, things that were like antioxidant boosting, that were good for his health. And I started reading about tea. Mm-hmm. And I went and I got some like tea and botanicals, and I knew that I would be able to make something that would support his health and immunity through this. And these are like the days of vitamin water, the days where I was like, how do they get all those vitamins in that water, right? It was like this idea of like putting something healthy into a liquid was kind of like alien to me or new to me. I dropped the tea into water. I like watched it change color, and I knew that I was putting new flavor into it. And I was like, this is like magic. This is alchemy. It's unbelievable that something so simple is so good for you. So very long story short, it became a passion of mine. I eventually started a tea company called Brew Lab, which I launched and was ultimately acquired. But along the way, because that was not Owl's Brew, I knew a lot about tea and I knew a lot about health benefits and flavor. And I was like, I certainly drank when I wanted to drink. And I was like, it'd be so much better than like a sugary vodka drink. A sugary vodka drink with all these benefits and like, well, not a non-sugary, not a sugary, a non-sugary. So for me, the evolution of Owl's Brew, the way it started was really just, I knew how to make beverage, and I had this sort of vision for a beverage that was like better, and that so alcohol is a tea and botanical based spiked beverage company, and we use only really, really good ingredients to make really, really great beverages. But that's sort of how I came into Owl's Brew.
So many questions because one, tea sommelier, so people are listening and they're like, I didn't know that there's such thing. So that must have been an interesting journey to, one, become that, just even knowing it exists. Can you share a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, not widely pursued. It is. So I became a tea som. I was really sort of midway through my journey of sort of creating tea blends for restaurants. I created programs for like Momofuku, Soho House, Moxie Hotels. I created all the teas for Sweet Green, all of the iced teas for Sweet Green. I created those blends.
Oh, that's cool.
But along the way, I'm a big believer in education, and I was sort of just like winging it based on an understanding of like a deep interest. And I was like, you know what? I just really want to shore this up. So it was about a 1-year program. You just really learn about the provenance of tea. You learn some like cupping. You get to do a few ceremonies. You learn so for me, it was really just supporting what I was already doing, but sort of giving me a wider base of knowledge. And ultimately, like a lot of what I do in tea is breaking the rules. I mean, I try to make big beverages that don't taste like tea. And so for me, knowing the rules is what kind of gives me permission to break them.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much history and culture in tea. And I think understanding and appreciating that at the very base level of why it exists, why we've drinking it for centuries, and then being able to say, okay, now that I have the baseline appreciation, here's how I can break it apart. And also giving it to people that maybe don't like tea, right? There's some people who are like, I don't know, maybe iced tea I could drink, but being able to give them that in a way that they can enjoy the benefits without necessarily steeping hot tea.
Exactly, and breaking it down. And what's sort of so interesting, not to get too into the tea part, because I know we want to talk about the business, but if you look at certain teas, botanical spices, like in India, for instance, right, they use chai tea, or actually masala chai is like ginger, clove, cinnamon, cardamom, of course, and they've been using that for centuries. But then if you look at Europe during the Middle Ages, like mulled wine, also cinnamon, ginger, also the same herbs and spices, because they're these antibacterial, antiviral properties that help protect the body. And so there's so many differences in different botanicals or teas that have been used in different cultures, but then there's also a lot of similarities in using herbs and spices. So it's like super interesting to me.
I love that. I'm a tea drinker. I love just like the history of beverages. And we run a program at UConn, the one that you came into, on craft brewing. And a lot of that is focused on beer, but brewing, you brew so many different beverages, tea being one of them.
Yep.
And that's how we had you in the class. But a few months ago, we had on Bill and John from Athletic Brewing. And one of the things we had talked to them about was they actually started the NA alcohol movement, NA beer movement, like before it became really mainstream. And I would say a lot of what you've been doing at Owls Brew and thinking about how to make good for you beverages before the movement of really, truly good for you beverages. I know that that's a little bit more common on the market now, low alcohol or no alcohol or no sugar, low sugar drinks. So being at the early stages of development, and even from like a personal passion, how did the changing of the consumer demand for these drinks really help or shape the way that you've brought Owls Brew to market?
I mean, I think we're at an incredible time in the market. First of all, there's so many options now, right? There's with THC legal, and with there's just also like adaptogens, like nootropic. That's just like a zero proof instead of like zero proof being part of a sober movement, being part of a lifestyle, which sort of opens it up. So it's really an exciting moment, I think, in beverage in general. And then for us, I mean, when we first started out, we would be like, it's it's organic, like spiked tea, and people were like, what? They'd be like, what's in it? Like, so this idea, like we always had this concept that if you use really good ingredients, people will feel better, like a slightly lower ABV, just sort of trying to deliver something that we felt good about drinking. And I would say that when we first started, we were almost too early, but we stayed in business. We luckily had like a tribe, a community that loved it. And I feel like now it's super exciting. I feel like we're at the exact right moment, like things I've been talking about. In addition to having our alcoholic line, we also have a line of NA mixers that we're now like working with stadiums and venues for zero proof cocktail programs. And it's just like, it's an amazing time to be making the kind of product I make, because it feels like most consumers are there versus it used to be kind of like health nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. It is almost good being early in that you could test a lot of this out with a smaller group of individuals, your very early adopter customers, before the mass market jumped on this trend. Was there an aha moment or a moment that you can think of or remember where you said, I'm going to take tea, I'm going to take alcohol, I'm going to put it into a can, and I'm going to make this better for you beverage?
Yes. I mean, yes, there was an aha moment. So I kind of think about us more as like that 10,000 hours, like the whole Malcolm Gladwell thing. We knew from the day that I wanted, as someone who like really believes in drinking non-alcoholic and drinking alcoholic, I'm a very strong proponent. I believe in both. And the minute that I could see what I could do with tea and botanicals, I was like, this is such a better way to drink alcohol. So there was never a moment where this wasn't sort of my plan, even though it took, I started my tea company in 2012. We didn't make a boozy tea until 2020. So it took like 8 years for us to launch this product line, really because we used the capital from the sale of our first company to launch this. But in terms of the 10,000 hours, I knew what I wanted to do, but I knew it had to be great. I knew it had to taste great. And so my co-founder, Maria, and I spent years, so we had a tea company, and we had tea cocktail parties all the time. And we would go anywhere. We were like so opportunistic and insane. People would be like, come to like Dallas for Super Bowl. We have a 2,000 person event. And we would like pack a suitcase. And this is like 2015. We'd like pack a suitcase of tea, pack a suitcase of clothing, go to the airport. The TSA was like always checking us. We were like the sketchiest people. We had like a suitcase of lemon verbena. They were like, what are you doing with this bag? We were like, it's cool. It's just for like a party. We're fine. They're like, it looks like it's for a party. Like, what is? We were getting like little pink slips. But we spent, we like went to Art Basel. We brewed we brewed. I can't even tell you all the places that we because we were fresh brewing. We were brewing in some sort of places that you want to think you were like I don't know. We brewed all over the place, and we tested so many of our products through those several years of just creating tea cocktails essentially from scratch. So then by the time we were ready to we'd sold our company, we knew exactly what flavors we wanted. We knew what consumers liked. So to your point about early adoption, we just had an incredible amount of information.
And I didn't realize that you launched your first beverage in 2020. So obviously COVID probably impacted or not the process. What was that like, starting something so different and so big at that time?
So we launched Owl's Brew Boozy Tea in February 2020. Having spent years on premise, I had a go-to-market plan that was very much based on premise, right? On restaurants and hotels and everything that I had done in my career. I hadn't done a lot with retail, a little bit, but not a lot. That went out the window. We had to, honestly, and I think of the years since as almost like two different business plans. Our first 2 years of business were very COVID-driven, very retail-driven, like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, amazing partners, but that was really where you could find us. And now we're at about, maybe more than 50 stadiums and venues in the United States. We're sold at Yankee Stadium, TD Garden, SoFi Stadium. We're at Disney World. So the second part of our business was what I thought so it's really exciting, but we've had two different business models, not just in terms of route to market, but also in terms of team. We couldn't really have a big sales team in the first 2 years. And then 2 years into COVID, we had all this distribution. And all of a sudden, we didn't have displays in certain stores anymore. I'm like, what happened? Where's our display? Everyone with their big field teams, all the big guys had come rushing back in. We didn't have any sales team. So all of a sudden, our route to market where we were succeeding, we needed to completely rejigger. So COVID was crazy for our business.
Did it change anything around the packaging? Because obviously if you're selling to restaurants, you're selling actual cases versus, 6 or 12 pack containers. Was that different, the strategy?
On packaging, so one thing that we did for a lot of the venues and stadiums is their preferred size is a 19.2 ounce because if you're going to a game or a concert, you don't want, it limits how many times you have to get up. So looking at package in terms of what consumers want in a moment of their life, that was new for us. We also ended up launching draft for on-premise in the past 2 years, which previously we didn't have a need for. So yes, package definitely changes with business channel.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one really good insight is in part of your go-to-market strategy. So our entrepreneurs that are listening, thinking not just about the product and the people that you think are going to use it, but there's this middle point, right? Your distributor or your retailer, whoever's going to sell the product, to actually get it in the hands of your customer. You actually have to understand the ways in which they want to interact with your product and how they then choose to sell it.
Yep.
And the sizing and all of that kind of thing.
Exactly. So there are different case sizes. There are sort of bad case sizes and good case sizes. And then I think, and it doesn't matter how good your product is. I remember we tested early on at Live Nation in our 12-ounce cans. And we were like, oh, it's so good. It doesn't matter about the package size. And it really didn't work. Because consumers want, it's not just about, oh, that looks like it tastes great. The package, the format does really matter.
So I'm going to switch gears for a second and talk about your recent team up with Chelsea Handler. So I shared with you my little fangirl moment of seeing this and absolutely loving Chelsea, right? And we talked about growing up with reading, her books and watching her on TV. So one, how did that come about? And how do you combine a brand that you're building with someone that has such a very authentic, specific brand in the market already? And how do you balance those two things?
Yep. So we teamed up with Chelsea Handler for a line of vodka lemonades, which was really, really exciting. We have 3 flavors. We have a pink lemonade, which is actually made with rose hips and a dash of cranberry juice. We have just a classic, which is made with lemon verbena. And we have a mint, which is obviously just like cane sugar, lemon juice, but also fresh brewed mint leaves as well.
Sounds really good.
So that's great. It came about, so in 2024, the very end of 2024, like October, we got a call, which I honestly at first thought might be a joke. And it was her team, and they were like, can we talk to you about something? I'm like, sure. And so they explained to us that Chelsea, who is a 6-time best-selling New York Times author, and now is a number 1 New York Times best-selling author because she had this book come out and it was a number 1. She had a book coming out, and the second chapter was going to be about when she was a kid. She had a lemonade stand, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, but basically she was trying to make a lot of money with the lemonade stand and it wasn't going well. And then she hired like a 10-year-old to take as a promoter to take a 10% cut. And she still wasn't making enough money. So then she stole gin and vodka from her parents' house, spiked the lemonade, sold it to anyone double digit. And then she made a lot of money. Yeah. So they were like, this is the second chapter of her book. She's a Netflix special coming out. She's going to be telling the story. She's a residency in Vegas. And she found you guys at Whole Foods. She really wants to work with a female-founded brand that can bring her lemonade to life. And we were like, are you kidding? We're like, yes, let's do it. But it was sort of wild because we had to flip this was October. So we'd sort of flipped our entire strategy for the year round. But I'm such a big fan of her work and her values. I think she's great. And we just felt like it was such a great alignment, and it felt so authentic that we were willing to, more than willing, to sort of turn everything around just to make this happen.
Yeah. And then how do you think that impacted Owl's Brew in general? So you're obviously getting access to a bunch of people, Chelsea fans. You're following her she talked about on her book tour or to shows that she's doing in Vegas, residency in Vegas. Mm-hmm. So you're exposing people to Owl's Brew that had never heard of that before. I'm sure that made a big, hopefully, impression on the rest of your brand and your products.
Yeah. So, the Chelsea pack very quickly became one of our top selling SKUs, which was super exciting. And then I think it's just having a partner like her, especially because we're not a celebrity-driven brand, but she authentically chose us. It shines a different spotlight on us. She's been taking us on her journey with her. So when she did her book tour, we popped up on her book tour. I know I mentioned to you before that during her residency in Vegas, not only is she telling this story, but we actually have a lemonade stand at the Cosmopolitan Hotel that we
so cool.
pop up, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So I just think it shines a light on us, and we feel really, and we have a good relationship with her, and she's great, and she's a real professional, and it was honestly just awesome for us to be able to collaborate.
Yeah. So I see every now and again you post about seeing your cans live, right? So you walk into a store and you see it on a Target shelf or you see it somewhere. So do you still get the goosebumps moments when you see it in places you haven't seen it before?
Yeah, no, it's always just so incredible when I walk into a store. I guess I feel very passionate about certain stores. I love Whole Foods or Target. I think that just as someone who's in this business, I just I fangirl about certain stores or about certain venues. And so walking in and just seeing my brand there is incredible.
Yeah. Have you expanded internationally yet?
Have we expanded internationally? No, except we're sold at a couple hotels in Aruba.
Okay.
but we're not.
Are there plans to do that eventually?
Yeah, it's something that's in the works.
Yeah, I'm sure it changes some of your strategy, probably pricing, packaging, and
yeah,
then even
it's such an interesting time though. I mean, we were looking at Canada, for instance, but it's a weird moment.
Yeah,
Canada,
It's okay. So that's interesting to consider.
Well, they're not. So like Canada isn't taking, as far as I know, liquor from the U.S. right now.
Okay.
So
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's kind of, they're not. So there's some interesting, and then tariffs. So
yeah,
it's like, but yes, we are definitely thinking about going international.
Is there any strategy that you would change from a branding perspective? I know tea is very ubiquitous across Europe and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the brand as it stands resonates with that crowd? Or do you think that there's some pieces that you might change or flavor profiles you might do differently?
I think definitely flavor profiles. I think the branding, from like the limited research I've done, because obviously we're not going international right now, I think that from what I can gather, there is excitement around packaging that's like unique to a place. So I do think that the packaging can and will translate. I don't know if we'd make a small tweak, but I think the packaging we wouldn't touch too much. Flavor profiles we would definitely have to look at.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, resort-wise, if you stay with your U.S. customer but do that internationally with resorts, there might be some fun flavor profiles and collaborations. So many cool ideas here that we'll have to talk about offline. I have a ton more questions, and I feel like I could sit here and ask you all of these all day long. So one fun one. So summer just came and went faster than probably any one of us wanted it to. What was your go-to Owl's Brew flavor for the pool or beach?
So we just launched so first of all, in the middle of the summer, we launched a new line of Sun Tea, which was a line of zero bubble vodka and tea in 3 flavors: blueberry lemon, strawberry basil, and half and half.
Okay.
So we launched that in July. So first half of the summer, I would say the Chelsea Handler pink, and the second half of the summer was my half and half. So
tell us more about the no bubble. So for those that don't want the carbonated tea, it's a great just sippable beverage.
Yeah. So we have 2 product lines, and our boozy tea is carbonated, and then our like sun teas and the vodka lemonades are zero bubbles. And it's interesting, I think, in terms of the wellness stuff you're talking about, there's a much higher sensitivity to carbonation than there used to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. I did not know about that. I will definitely have to check that out. So thinking about your entire journey as an entrepreneur, what is something that surprised you about this process, both within yourself and in the process of bringing a product to market?
I mean, so I think the number one thing is how hard it is to actually make a good product, like the way that you want to. So I'll give you an example. My background, as I said, had been a tea somm. I've spent years like mixing things with botanicals and teas. And when I wanted to launch Owl, and I had an issue. I saw white space in the market where like a lot of things in the market are made with like artificial flavors or natural flavors. And I felt like it was a lot of like chemicals. And I was like, I want to make it the right way. Super long story short is when I first wanted to launch Owl's Brew Boozy Tea, someone was like, you need to go to a flavor house in order to make this product. I'm like, I don't know what a flavor house is. I've never been in alcohol before. So I like batch up my samples and I go to one of the best flavor houses in the US. And they're like, oh, like, is this your flavor? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, let's try it. They try it. They're like, what's in it? I'm like, black tea and hibiscus. And they're like, we can do this. And I'm like, oh, great. What does that mean? They're like, well, we can like make a naturally flavored black tea and a naturally flavored hibiscus. And I was like, well, how do you do that? And they're like, well, for it to have a natural flavor designation in the US, they're like, we can give it a natural flavor designation. I'm like, but will you be making the hibiscus from hibiscus tea? They're like, not necessarily. And I'm like, well, will it have the same benefit? Will it have the same benefit? They're like, no, we don't really have benefits anymore. They're like, but it will. So like, very long story short, they're like, but we can make this. And I'm like, but I already made it. Like, what? I'm like, I made it. What do you mean you can like replicate it without benefit, without nutrition, like what, with a slightly different flavor probably. So then fast forward, I called up, we wanted to co-pack, and I called maybe 20 different breweries. And I'm like, hey, like I want to make an RTD. And they were like, okay, great. What is it? I'm like, oh, it's tea-based. They're like, do you have a flavor packet for it? And I'm like, no, I want you to your class's point, I'm just going to brew the tea. these are places that brew beer all the time, but like RTD is different. RTD is weird with flavors. And they're like, we won't do that. 20 different places told me no. The 21st told me that they would brew the tea. But what my co-founder and I think about a lot is if I hadn't had like 8 years of business experience, if I hadn't felt like solidly sure that this could be made at scale, I would have given up. I would have either given up and been like, I can't make this product, or I would have had a concession and been like, I guess a natural flavor is good enough. It's what everyone uses. It was just because I had had so much time under my belt where I felt like confident to pursue it. So it's like really hard to make a product the right way in this industry. Like people take shortcuts. And if you don't have like both conviction and confidence, like I can't imagine, it's very hard to actually make something the way you want to make it. That's one of the things I was most surprised by, which is why consumers don't get the products they deserve most of the time.
Wow. Yeah, that is really, I mean, you think about any venture-backed startup that's on a mission to get the product out into the hands of customers as quickly as possible to start, one, validating that there's something there, but also to start generating revenue. They're going to take shortcuts or be at least incentivized to, because that's the easiest path forward.
Like the industry standard. And also it's such a big industry and there's so it's like so easy to just give up, not because you're like giving up, but because you think there's no other path. Like you're like, oh, well, this is how everyone does it.
Right.
I guess that way that I dreamed doesn't work.
Yeah. And I like what you said about when you said this is the way that food and bev goes. This is what RTDs do. They go to this flavor house. They then do this. And it's almost like this is the path you have to follow. And you're right. If someone was very early on in their career that was just sort of following a roadmap, they may have very quickly cut some corners and just followed the lead on that, or even allowed people to tell them no about the packaging versus trying to figure out how to get it done and get it brewed in the right place, the right size cans, etc. That's...
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm glad you stayed with it.
Thank you. Well, I was like, I'm sure we can make this. But again, it was because it wasn't my first business.
Right.
If it had been my first, I would have been like, okay, roll over. And like, that's when you look at how things are made, you can see that those are the trodden paths. And it's really hard to like fight for what you think is right, especially if every manufacturer is like, no, that's not how we make this type of product.
Right. And I think now with food and bev, there's so much innovation, both in the machinery, the process, what goes into our food. I think consumers care so much more, not even just about what we eat, but what we put on our skin, on our clothes, all of that. So I think what you're saying to our entrepreneurs, hopefully, is that they need to lean into their values, really understand what they value. And if they are valuing sustainability or they're valuing good for you, real products, real flavors, then they need to continue to push for what they believe in.
And also that there probably is a pathway. If it seems simple, if it seems like you can make it simply, you probably can, but it's probably way more difficult to find that unless like you just luck out and you get to the 21st person first. But I think usually it is executable.
Yeah. So many great words of wisdom. I have some rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
I don't know.
Okay. So what is the best piece of advice you ever received?
Okay. Pay attention to what you don't know. So for me and my co-founder, we've really taken that to heart. We have found through the course of our career, our partnership, because we've been partners for 15 years over all of the companies we've done together or worked on together. We're always caught up by like, oh, there was like a legal document that we didn't quite understand, but we figured the lawyers understood it. That one bit us, right? So anytime there's a gray area, we take very seriously the idea of really like ask the stupid question, like clarify, because that's usually what you don't know matters as much as what you do.
Yeah, that's really good advice. What book, TV show, or movie do you think offers valuable insights or inspiration for entrepreneurs?
So right now I've read, Good to Great is obviously a really, really great book. I'm reading right now The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is new for me. I read a lot, but this one, and I know it's like a classic, but it's new for me. And I think it's great. So I'm halfway through that. And I think Good to Great is very good.
Yeah, great recommendations. And finally, what brings you joy?
My family, my kids.
Oh, that's good. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming into the studio. I really appreciate the conversation. Like I said, I could listen to your story and hear insights all day long of your experience. It's really great what you've built and the continuous push forward in an industry that I know is sometimes very difficult and rapidly changing.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it was so fun to be here.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.